Here's something that will genuinely shock you. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that a woman who initially has zero romantic interest in a man can, under specific psychological conditions, completely reverse that feeling. Not over years, sometimes over weeks. And the men who trigger this reversal are almost never the most handsome, the richest, or the most confident ones in the room. They're the ones who understand one thing that almost nobody talks about. Attraction in women is not a switch. It's a slow burning fire. And today I'm going to hand you the match. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share changes everything you thought you knew about making a woman want you, especially when she's already told you with her eyes or her words that she's not interested. Let me tell you about a man named Daniel. Daniel met a woman at a mutual friend's dinner party. She was funny, sharp, and absolutely not interested in him. She was polite, but the signals were clear. Short answers, body turned away, no follow-up questions. He was basically conversational furniture to her. 6 months later, they were in a relationship. Now, before you assume Daniel did something manipulative or desperate, he didn't. He didn't chase her. He didn't flood her phone with messages. He didn't try harder. He actually did the opposite of what most men do. And that, right there, is the first clue I'm going to give you before we even get into the psychology. Most men, when a woman shows disinterest, respond by increasing their effort. More compliments, more availability, more, hey, just checking in texts. And what does that do? It confirms her initial red. It tells her subconscious, this person is operating from a place of need, not value. And women's brains, wired by thousands of years of evolutionary psychology, are extraordinarily good at detecting need versus value. So what did Daniel do differently? What do the men who actually turn the tide do? That's exactly what this video is about. And I promise you, by the time we reach the end, you'll understand not just the what, but the why. Because the science behind female attraction is genuinely fascinating. And once you understand it, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. Here's the first thing I need you to understand. When a woman says she's not interested, she is almost never making a permanent character judgment about you. She is making a present moment assessment based on the information she currently has. And that information can change. Dr. Lucy Brown, a neuroscientist at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, who has spent decades studying romantic attraction using brain imaging, found something remarkable. The brain regions that activate during attraction, specifically the ventral tegmental area, which is your brain's reward system, can be activated at different points in time with the same person. Meaning, someone who didn't trigger your reward system in January can absolutely trigger it in March. The brain is not taking a final vote, it's taking a current vote. This is actually huge because it means not interested right now is very different from not interested ever. The problem is most men hear not interested and either give up completely or go into overdrive trying to change her mind through sheer force of persistence. Both are wrong moves. The real question isn't how do I convince her? The real question is, how do I change the data she's working with? And that, my friend, is where psychology becomes your greatest ally. Robert Cialdini, one of the most referenced psychologists in the world on the topic of influence, identified scarcity as one of the 6 core principles of persuasion. We want what we can't easily have. We assign more value to things that are rare or potentially disappearing. This is not controversial, it's brain biology. Brain. But here's where men consistently get it wrong. They think scarcity means playing hard to get in a performative way, waiting exactly 3 days to text back, pretending to be busy, giving one-word replies to seem mysterious. That's not scarcity, that's transparency. And women see through it almost immediately. Real scarcity is not a tactic, it's a truth, and it comes from one place, actually having a full life. When a man has genuine interests, genuine friendships, genuine goals, and genuine joy that exist entirely outside of his pursuit of her, that is scarcity. Because her mind starts to notice something. This person isn't orbiting me. He has his own gravitational field, and that psychologically is irresistible. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called the challenge hypothesis. Research shows that humans, particularly in romantic contexts, experience increased desire when they perceive a target as slightly unpredictable and not entirely obtainable. The operative word is slightly. You're not trying to be cold or dismissive. You're trying to be genuinely busy with your own life. And that is the most attractive thing on earth. Daniel, the man I mentioned at the start, when he left that dinner party, he didn't go home and stress about the woman who ignored him. He went back to his regular life, his gym, his creative projects, his friends, and when they inevitably crossed paths again through the social circle, he was the same easygoing, low-pressure version of himself. No desperation, no agenda. Just a man who seemed genuinely content. That confused her, and confusion, in attraction, is the beginning of curiosity. In 1968, psychologist Robert Zayonk published research on what he called the mere exposure effect. The finding was straightforward and borderline mind-blowing. The more we're exposed to something, the more we tend to like it. This has been replicated across dozens of studies, cultures, and contexts. In the context of attraction, this is everything. A woman who is not initially attracted to you is not your enemy. She's just someone who hasn't had enough exposure to you at your best. The key phrase there is at your best, because exposure to you being anxious, needy, or performative will do the exact opposite of helping. Exposure to you being genuinely yourself in a positive emotional state without any agenda. That's the exposure that rewires the brain. This is why proximity matters so much in social dynamics. This is why coworkers fall for each other. This is why friend groups become couples. It's not magic. It's neuroscience. Repeated positive exposure creates familiarity, and familiarity creates comfort, and comfort, when combined with admiration, creates attraction. So the strategy here is not to force proximity. It's to exist in her world naturally, without making it weird, and consistently be the most enjoyable version of yourself whenever that happens. Bring energy. Be funny, be interesting, then leave first. Always leave first. That last point is critical, and I'll say it again. Always be the one to leave first. End conversations when they're still good. Don't linger until it becomes awkward. Leave her wanting just a little more. This isn't manipulation. It's the same reason great songs end before you're tired of them. Here's something the pickup artist industry got catastrophically wrong for decades. They told men that attraction is about logic. That if you present the right credentials, the right lines, the right status signals, she will compute the equation and select you. That's not how female attraction works, not even close. Dr. Helen Fisher, the biological anthropologist at Rutgers University who literally wrote the book on romantic love, describes attraction as primarily an emotional and chemical experience, not a rational one. Women don't fall for a resume, they fall for a feeling. So the question becomes, what feeling are you creating? This is where most men make their second biggest mistake. They try to impress. They flex credentials, achievements, and status. And while those things aren't entirely irrelevant, leading with them creates a very specific feeling in a woman. She feels like she's being sold something. And nobody wants to feel like a sales pitch. The men who trigger genuine desire, they don't try to impress. They create emotional experiences. They make her laugh until she forgets she had a headache. They ask questions nobody ever asks her. They challenge her perspective in a way that makes her think. They listen, genuinely listen, in a world where almost nobody does. The emotional triggers that psychologists consistently identify as activators of romantic interest in women are laughter, curiosity, admiration, and feeling understood. Notice that "he had a great car" is not on that list. Humor deserves its own moment here because it is chronically underestimated as an attraction tool. A 2006 study in Evolution and Human Behavior found that women consistently rated humor as one of the most attractive traits in a partner, and specifically, the type of humor mattered. Wit and intelligence-based humor scored far higher than shock or crude humor. Being genuinely funny, not try-hard funny, signals high cognitive ability, social intelligence, and emotional security. It is, evolutionarily speaking, a very sophisticated signal. So if you can make her laugh, truly laugh, not politely smile, you've done something most men who've tried before you couldn't. Now let's get to the part everyone actually wants to know. How does the shift happen? What is the actual moment when a woman who wasn't interested starts to become interested? Based on the psychology, it almost always comes from one of three triggers. I want you to memorize these. The first trigger, she sees you valued by others. There's a concept in evolutionary psychology called mate copying. Research from the University of Exeter confirmed that women become significantly more attracted to a man when they observe that other women find him attractive or when they see him highly respected by a social group. This is not vanity or shallowness. It's a deeply embedded psychological shortcut. If others value him, there must be a reason. The brain doesn't want to miss something everyone else sees. This means your social proof, the way you interact with others, the warmth and respect people show you in public, is working on her even when you're not directly talking to her. Your reputation precedes you. Your social ease follows you. Invest in being genuinely well-liked by the people around you and let her witness it. The second trigger, she sees you unbothered by her disinterest. This one is counterintuitive but profoundly powerful. When a woman expects a man to be disappointed or reactive to her disinterest, and instead he's completely fine, relaxed, and going about his life with full energy, it disrupts her expectations. And disrupted expectations create questions. Questions create curiosity. Curiosity is the doorway to attraction. The psychology here is about what's called reactance. When we expect something to happen and it doesn't, especially something related to our ego, we become more focused on the thing that didn't behave predictably. You not being crushed by her disinterest makes you more interesting, not less. The third trigger, a moment of genuine, unguarded vulnerability. Before you roll your eyes, this is backed by hard research. Dr. Brené Brown's work on vulnerability has shown that authentic emotional openness increases perceived attractiveness and trustworthiness, particularly with women. The key word is authentic, not performed vulnerability. Not, I'm going to share something deep to make her like me, energy. Genuine moments where you let something real show, a fear, a failure, a passion, and you're not embarrassed by it. This is what separates confidence from arrogance. Arrogance needs to hide weakness. Confidence can hold weakness without flinching. And women find that distinction absolutely magnetic. I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't spend real time on what not to do, because the psychology of what not to do is just as important. Don't confuse persistence with pressure. There is a version of persistence that is attractive, the kind that shows up as consistency, as someone who doesn't disappear after one rejection. And then there's pressure. Repeated attempts to get her to change her mind, questioning her decisions, showing up uninvited. The first is admirable. The second is a fast track to being blocked and talked about at her next brunch. Don't make her the center of your universe prematurely. Nothing deflates potential attraction faster than a man who makes his entire emotional temperature dependent on what one woman does. If your mood for the day is determined by whether or not she texted back, that energy communicates itself. And it is not attractive. It is exhausting. Women want to be chosen, not needed. There's a difference. Don't try to logic her into attraction. Presenting your case for why you'd be a good partner, listing your qualities, your stability, your good intentions, is one of the most common and least effective approaches in the history of romantic pursuit. Attraction is not a legal argument. You cannot win it with evidence. You can only create the conditions in which it grows naturally. And finally, don't wait forever. There's a version of this advice that men take too far, where they invest months being patient and subtle and then wonder why they ended up in the friend zone. There has to come a moment of clarity, a clear, confident expression of interest with no desperation attached. Not a grand declaration, just honesty. Something like, I enjoy spending time with you. I'd like to explore this if you're open to it. And then, and this is essential, being genuinely okay with whatever she says. That combination of clarity and non-attachment, almost impossibly attractive. Here's the truth that most people don't want to hear, but it's the most important thing in this entire video. You cannot force attraction, but you can create the conditions in which it becomes almost inevitable. And those conditions take time. They require consistency. They require that you actually do the internal work of becoming the most genuinely excellent version of yourself. Not for her, but because that's the kind of man who creates those conditions naturally, with every woman, everywhere. The most attractive men in the world are not attractive because they learned tricks. They're attractive because they are genuinely interested in their own lives. They have things they care about. They have a sense of humor. They have emotional stability. They make people around them feel good. And those qualities compound over time, the same way interest compounds in a bank account. Psychologists call this intrinsic self-expansion. The theory, developed by Arthur and Elaine Aron, suggests that people are fundamentally drawn to partners who help them grow, who expand their sense of self, who bring novelty and capability into their world. When you become a person who genuinely has that to offer, you stop needing to convince anyone. They start to feel it. Let me bring this full circle. Remember Daniel, the man from the dinner party who she barely noticed? The reason it worked for him wasn't strategy. It was that he genuinely lived by these principles, not as a technique, but as a lifestyle. He had his own life. He made her laugh. He didn't perform. He stayed consistent without being clingy. He created positive emotional experiences and then stepped back. And he told her clearly, without desperation, that he was interested. And then he let her decide. She decided yes. Not because he tricked her, not because he wore her down, but because over time, the data she had about him changed, and when it changed, her feelings changed with it. That's the real psychology. Not manipulation, not games. Just a deep understanding of how attraction actually forms in the human brain and the patience and confidence to let it do its thing. So here's what I want you to do right now. And this is not the boring subscribe ask. This is the real one. Think about one woman in your life right now. Just one. Someone who might not see you the way you'd like her to yet. And I want you to pick one thing from today, just one, and apply it this week. Not all of it, one thing. The mere exposure principle, the scarcity of a genuinely full life, the art of leaving first when the conversation is good. Pick one and actually do it. Because here's what I know from everything psychology tells us. The men who change their outcomes are not the ones who consume information. They're the ones who use it. And if you're ready to take this further, because what we covered today is just the beginning, there is one more piece of this puzzle that I haven't given you yet. It's arguably the most important one, understanding the specific attachment style of the woman you're dealing with, because everything changes depending on whether she's anxious, avoidant, or secure. Get that wrong, and all of this falls apart. Get it right, and the whole dynamic shifts in your favor almost immediately. I've broken that down completely in my next video, and honestly, it's the one that ties everything together. The title is right there on your screen. Don't skip it. Because once you understand what's actually driving her behavior at the attachment level, not just the surface level, you'll finally feel like you have the full map, not just half of it. That's where this story continues. I'll see you there.